Hello again. My name is Greg Hintermeister. I work in the Cloud Engagement Hub. And what we're going to do today is part 2 of the journey to a distributed cloud. And so last time, if you recall, we talked about 3 main outcomes, where the first one is clients want to build, deliver, and manage applications across a hybrid multi-cloud environment. And then we talked about how if they could do that, they want to bring the best of cloud wherever they need to run it, wherever these applications need to run. And yet they still want to create this as a service experience so they can really focus on innovation. And then third, we talked about, they want to use a common control plane to manage the apps, the platform, and the security across that distributed cloud. Well, today in part 2, we're going to really focus in on building and delivering and managing these applications across that distributed cloud. And so last time, we looked at IBM Cloud Satellite as the way to create this distributed cloud. And we have these locations here. I've got AWS and some dedicated infrastructure. We have an on-prem inside IBM data center itself. And then we created a number of clusters. And so if you look over here, I can see all my locations, my satellite locations, and the clusters that are created in there. And these are the clusters certainly I can control and manage end to end. We talked about being able to do updates, that IBM Cloud SREs actually reaches out and manages those for me. But I want to manage the applications running across them. And I also want to add other clusters to manage where the applications go. And so you'll notice if I scroll down, there's additional clusters that Satellite is aware of, but Cloud Satellite isn't fully managing them. So if that makes sense, I can go into Cloud Satellite location, deploy an OpenShift cluster, and it is fully managed by IBM. But I could also add additional clusters that are outside the scope of Cloud Satellite and still attach them so I can use this capability to deploy applications and configuration and manage them. And so that's what we're really gonna talk about today. So if I go back to my slides here, what I'm going to show in this demonstration is the following. I've got IBM Cloud over here, and I've got some satellite configurations. It's either YAML files is what it is. It could be YAML files to deploy an application, a policy, or whatever you want. You'll notice I've got my satellite clusters like we had last time. So in AWS, I've got a cluster or 2. I've got an on-prem cluster. I've got some other dedicated environments to have a Cloud Satellite fully managed cluster. But I've also got some additional clusters that Cloud Satellite didn't provision, but they're OpenShift clusters provisioned in other ways. So what we're going to do is create these satellite configurations, and you'll see them in the interface soon. And then we're going to deploy them. So when I click to create a subscription, it actually takes the configuration and creates a subscription. I have the little blob here, and creates a subscription to all of the clusters I tell it to. In this case, it's going to be a subset. And when I actually activate the subscription, it's going to deploy something called custom tools across a subset of clusters. That's good. And then we're going to take a real microservices-based application. It's deployed through an operator, so we're going to take the operator and deploy it across the environments, and then take the instance of StockTrader, this microservices application, and deploy it as well. So when I actually create the subscription, it's going to deploy the content out, and then it will actually deploy the environments across the clusters I tell it to. Now, it doesn't have to be the same collection, and I'll show how we subset the clusters next. So really, that's the key, and then I'll show how we can actually upgrade and update the applications themselves. Okay, let's get started. All right, so in this environment, as I showed you, I've got these locations, and across the locations, I've got all these clusters. But the way to do management of the applications is through satellite config, as a shorthand term you'll hear me talk about now. And I've got three kinds of configurations, or three instances. I've got something called custom tooling, just a simple little application I'll show you the YAML for. And then I've got this microservices application, stock trader, and then the operator that deploys the application is part of this pre-deploy config. So let's take a look first at this custom tooling. So the details are it's custom tooling. I've got a bunch of versions of it. If I click in here, it's nothing surprising. It's just I've named it Custom Tools 4. It's just a simple little image that deploys out. And then I've got a new version, Custom Tool 5. But in this scenario, I'm gonna do the version 4 because I know that's a solid version I want to deploy. So I'm gonna create a subscription. Call it Greg Test Tooling. And I'm going to pick version 4. And now I'm going to pick a group of clusters. And as you saw earlier, from that broad list of clusters, I can group them into whatever groups I want. So then I click, well, actually before I click create, I'm going to show you. So I've got a few clusters out here, VSAT, OCP, which is satellite cluster. West Coast is a satellite cluster in a different IaaS environment. I've got my AWS cluster, that's a cloud satellite cluster. And then I've got just a different OpenShift cluster not deployed by cloud satellite. And so if I go here, what I'm going to show you is when I create the subscription, Cloud Satellite then says, okay, here are the clusters I need to put this on, and I'm going to do it. And so if I go back to the UI, I've said put this configuration on all the clusters in this group. So I create it, and here's the cluster subscription. Oh, and look at that. The custom tooling 4 is already being put out here just a few seconds ago. And the beauty of it is, this is a completely different IaaS than what's running in this West Coast. Completely different location that Cloud Satellite is managing. And yet you'll see here as well, let's make that a little smaller so you can see less than a minute ago it's creating. And then the same thing happens on AWS. So I can go look at custom tooling 4 less than a minute ago, it gets created. And even in my other OpenShift that Satellite did not provision, but I've attached it to Cloud Satellite, it is also being created. So that's great. Now I've got this custom tooling out. My developers can do their stuff, and I'm good. So I'm going to come back to that, but for now, let's now go to the larger stock trader environment. So now I'm going to go to this pre-deploy. And again, this is the operator that deploys stock trader, but everything in OpenShift now is operator based. So this lets me push out the operator of really any tool I want across all the clusters I choose. So I'm going to go Greg Trader Operator 2. I'm going to pick this latest version and again push it out to my test groups and click create. So now it's going to be created. Now this one is actually in a different namespace. So if I go over to my clusters, I need to go into something called stock trader sat config. And you'll see, okay, the operator's here a few seconds ago. And just to show it off a little more, it's going to go, looks like that one's still working, which is okay. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get out there. And now I'm going to go to my prereqs 44, sat config, and that's out there too, less than a minute ago. So these guys we'll check back in on. So now that I've got it running in this the operator running, I'm actually going to go back to my stock trader and show it deploy. So again, I'm going to create a subscription, Greg Trader 2, pick the latest version, and go to my group and select it. And so this one is going to go out and deploy as well. And so now I'll go look at some of these other ones. Oh, yeah, look at that. So I got not only the operator running, but on this West Coast environment, I've got a bunch of microservices running that it's creating this stock trader microservices-based application. Now, it's also going to create a number of routes so I can actually launch the application in that remote location as well. And so let's see if it's off into the, not quite there in the satellite, in the AWS one yet, but that's okay. We'll show that in a minute. So this satellite cluster is raring to go. I'm going to go back to the pods. It's they're starting up. So while that's happening, I want to go back to our test tools, because this capability, if I go back to the test tooling, I may have said, okay, I've got this application. It's on test tools 4. And it might be a problem, or it might be an upgrade, and I want to make a new version. And so I did upload a new version 5, and of course I only know it because if I look at the YAML, it says custom tools 5, and again, basic. But you could see where you could use a Git repo and push new versions of content in, and then through a same automation, you could say, I want to edit this subscription. And so the edit subscription now goes, okay, I was version 4, now I want to go to version 5. And again, I got version 4 out in this cluster. And once I hit save, it's going to say, great, wherever this is running, change it. And you'll see, already, Cloud Satellite comes in, it says I'm terminating version 4, and I've got version 5 running. And it's really that quick, so now it's done. So that's that's pretty quick demo, but that's it. So to see if we're all set here, looks like all the stock traders running now in this Cloud Satellite location. So I'm going to go to routes and open the satellite, open the stock trader UI. Click this to open. And put trader at the end. And so, yeah, so now I've got my stock trader UI. Let's log in just for kicks. Click submit. Okay, yeah, so now the login happened and I have my stock trader application. Just go to github.com/IBM stock trader and you could use it too. So let's check back quick into how the AWS cluster is doing on the custom tooling and the stock trader deployment. Yeah, look at these other ones. I got these other stock trader, these custom tool 5 running. And now my AWS one here, if you look at my AWS cluster, it took a couple seconds longer, but now my stock trader is deployed and is starting up. And when it's ready, I could do the same route into its instance of stock trader. So I can really, control where my applications run. It doesn't have to be, simple little apps. It could be fully formed microservices-based applications. Okay, so I want to thank you for your time. This has been, showing how you can deploy and manage applications across a common management plane using IBM Cloud Satellite. And so we had all these locations. From those locations, we had all these clusters, including clusters I attached that were not IBM Cloud Satellite deployed. And then these configurations, I was able to deploy in and even with the custom tooling, change which instance was, which version was being used. And then as you saw in our clusters, this is the AWS cluster, as well as the private, West Coast cluster. Both were provisioned through IBM Cloud Satellite. I was able to deploy the stock trader application, and I was able to deploy and update the routes, pods. Update the custom tools from version 4 to version 5. So, all right, well, I want to thank you for your time, and have a great day. Goodbye.